Hello and welcome to Attentive Healthcare Solution. We're excited to present ChartGuard for NextGen, your downtime solution. My name is Chelsea Grover and I'm the Marketing Communications Manager for Attentive. I'd like to take a moment to explain the process for today's presentation. First, I'm really happy to announce that this webinar will only last about 30 minutes, probably a little bit less. My apologies for blocking more time in your calendar, but I hope you enjoy the extra hour that you'll have after this. Okay, so with that, I need to mention this webinar will be recorded and we'll send out a copy of the slides along with the recording within the next week. Next, I have some super exciting news to share with you all. Attentive is now part of DAS Health. DAS Health is a leading provider of health IT and management solutions and a trusted consultant to many physicians groups, hospitals, and healthcare systems across North America. By combining our skills and expertise, we'll be able to provide even more support, value, and solutions to your practice. And we're looking forward to continuing to serve you. And I want to reassure you that we still are here for you. We're still going to be here specializing in NextGen and keeping our focus on you. Next, in case you weren't familiar with Attentive, or as we are now known, DAS Health, I wanted to share a bit of who we are with you. We specialize in NextGen Healthcare, and we're passionate about providing solutions for our healthcare provider partners, which in turn help them to improve patient care, enhance the patient experience, and maintain a financially healthy practice. To sum it up, we do everything NextGen. We also have NextGen add-on productivity solutions, including ChartGuard, which you'll be learning about today, Refund Manager, Unapplied and Deposit Manager, and Multiple Encounter Billing Manager. Okay, as an FYI, everyone's phone will remain muted the entire time. Please use the webinar control panel to ask any and all questions. We'll answer them all at the end, but you can type them in anytime they occur to you. And with that, I think that I'm going to go ahead and introduce our presenters for today. Tom Seco is Attentive's Business Development Manager and Subject Matter Expert on ChartGuard, and Joe Schultz is the Director of Product Solutions at Attentive, which means that him and his team are the people that actually built this powerful add-on tool, and thus is going to be in a great position to demonstrate it. So Tom, I'll pass it off to you. Feel free to get started when you're ready.
Okay, thank you, Chelsea, and thank you everyone for joining us today for our webinar. This is an agenda we put together so that you get an idea what we're going to cover today. You'll gain an understanding of why practices invest in this type of solution. We'll talk about EHR dependencies. We'll talk about how ChartGuard works, and we'll show you the output that's generated by ChartGuard as well. And then we'll answer any questions that you have at the end of the webinar. So what we're talking about today is simply a business continuity solution that ensures the availability of your patient charts during EHR downtime, so that your physicians and providers can continue to see their patients while your IT team is working to bring NextGen back online. There's a survey that was done by Uptime Institute earlier this year, and the survey stated that 69% of the data center owners and operators reported experiencing some form of outage, regardless of the severity, whether it was a significant severity, a serious severity, or severe severity in the past 3 years. Some of the results of that survey also showed that and the difference between a fleeting outage and a substantial outage, over about half of the downtime incidences were categorized as fleeting, meaning they have few consequences, but the other half caused substantial financial, operational, and reputational damage to the organization. The most common causes of outages are on-site power failure, cooling failures, software IT system errors, and network issues. And for the outages that were classified as significant, serious, or severe, 62% of the outages cost more than $100,000. 15% of the outages cost over $1 million. So there can be a significant cost when a significant outage occurs. And I thought this last point here, 79% of the data center outages involve human error. Top two issues contributing to those incidents are staffing failed to execute properly, and incorrect processes and procedures were executed. So I thought that was an interesting statistic as well. So just some information for you. With regards to EHR dependencies and the impact of losing a component of EHR, we've come to learn that our EHR is dependent on complex technology, that we have servers and we have workstations, we have tablets, we have scanners, we have local area networks, we have wireless routers, we have VPNs, we have T1 lines, we have fiber lines, we got power systems, cooling systems, we have internet connections. I mean, we have all these components that are involved in our systems, and behind each one of these components is also software that runs it as well. So not only we have hardware situations, but we also have software involved with it. And if we lose any one of these components, it can cause us to lose access to our EHR system. And when we lose access to our EHR system, it can have an impact on the business. It can have an impact on the quality of care that we provide, can have an impact on productivity, can have an impact on revenue as well. This is just a slide that shows some of the recent outages that have happened over the past few years. I'm not going to go into each one of them, but I will focus your attention on the types of outages and the duration of the outage. If you look at they range from anywhere from an hour to 12 hours, and some in cases several days. And they do also range in the types of causes as well. The point here is that some of these outages occur because of mechanical issues. Some of them occur because of computer hardware issues, some software issues, some human error as well. And that human error, or human causes, I should say, not human error, but human causes, can be because of mistakes that are made by people. And the other type of human cause is people who want to cause disruption and chaos. So they happen because of all sorts of reasons. It is unexpected when they do happen, and it can happen for a significant period of time as well. There was some surveys that have been done with regards to what downtime costs, and some of those surveys have shown that it can cost as much as $488 per hour per provider. So if you extrapolate that out for a 10 provider practice that's down for 4 hours, it can cost as much as $19,520. So it can be significant, not only in this case, but as we mentioned on the previous slide, costs can range as much as $100,000 to, in some cases, over $1 million. Because we have those types of outages, HIPAA has a clause in it that states that we should have some type of contingency plan or plans in place for responding to these various types of emergencies or other types of situations that can impact our EHR systems. So what are our options if we do have an EHR downtime situation that happens at our organization? Well, we can temporarily close the practice or the location that's affected by it. We can implement more redundant technology, so we can implement additional servers. We can add another network. We could add another data center. We could add more power systems or cooling systems. But as we add more redundancy, we also increase the cost over a period of time, not only on the initial acquisition, but the ongoing cost as well. For those of us that aren't, for those of you that are not hosted, you can go to a hosting option. But as we talked about earlier, if you have internet outages, is a significant cause of loss to our EHR systems. We can go to paper charts, but that's becoming harder and harder for us to do because we are becoming so dependent on our EHR systems. And the last option that we have available is implementing a solution that ensures that you're prepared to handle a downtime situation. So this is kind of a busy slide, but if we start up here in the upper right-hand corner, you know, as we reflect on just what we talked about, that our systems are complex, that our systems are dependent on many components, that downtime is caused by unexpected events, which can be that are beyond our control, and then we talked about the various options that we have when we have a downtime situation. There's some questions that we should be asking ourselves and thinking about as we go through this exercise of, you know, what downtime is and how we should address it. Starting up here in the upper right-hand corner, do I pursue an uptime or do I pursue a solution that enables me to continue on with my business until NextGen comes back online? So do I add, as I mentioned earlier, do I add more components to my environment? Do I add more servers? Do I add more cooling systems? Do I add more power systems? Or do I look to have a solution that enables me to continue with my business? What are the impacts of NextGen downtime? What are the impacts of a NextGen downtime incident that can have on our clinics? So the impact of revenue, what is that impact? If do I have an impact on productivity? Do I have an impact on quality of care? So identify what those impacts are when I lose access to NextGen. And then how significant can that impact be to our clinic based on the duration of a downtime incident? So if I'm down for an hour, what's the impact of lost revenue? Or what's the impact of lost productivity? What's the impact of quality of care? If I'm down for 2 hours, what's the impact of lost revenue? What's the impact of lost productivity? What's the impact of quality of care? If I'm down for 3 hours, what's the impact of revenue and productivity and quality of care? So go through an exercise and identify what those impacts are and what the significance of those impacts can be based on the duration. Am I going to be reactive or proactive in my clinic's preparedness for downtime? Meaning, I've had a downtime situation, I've experienced it, now I'm looking for a solution to make sure that I'm prepared for a downtime situation. Or I haven't had a downtime situation, so I want to be proactive and I want to be prepared, make sure my clinic and my health center, my practice is prepared for a downtime situation. Ask a question as to when was the last time that we reviewed our downtime preparedness and business continuity strategy and plan. Do I review it every year, or did I just write it once, reviewed it the next year and haven't looked at it since? Or I just wrote it once and I never looked at it again. So when was the last time that we reviewed these business continuity strategy and plan? How do I minimize the loss and how would I minimize the disruption when a downtime situation occurs? So how do I minimize the loss of revenue? How do I minimize the loss of productivity? How do I minimize the loss of quality of care, or reduction in quality of care? How do I minimize the disruption to the workflow and to my patients as they're coming through? So what do I do? How do I minimize that? And then when we experience an unexpected downtime situation, who's going to be the first to notice that there is no access to NextGen? Is it going to be the front office? Is it going to be the back office? Is it going to be your physicians and your providers on the staff on the front line working with the patients? So these are some of the questions that you should be thinking about as you go through this exercise of identifying what solution should we have in place to make sure that we're prepared for a downtime situation and to make sure that we minimize the disruption if we do have a downtime, experience a downtime situation. So because of all those questions and some of our clients that have asked us over the years, we came up with this ChartGuard solution. And our ChartGuard solution is an affordable business continuity solution that's cost effective and easy to use, that ensures that you're prepared for a downtime situation at each of your office locations or clinic locations, and that you have access to your patient charts during an EHR downtime situation, that you can minimize the disruption using this software, and be able to continue to see your patients. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Joe, and Joe's going to take you through a description of how ChartGuard works.
Thanks, Tom, and thank you everyone for joining us today. When we designed ChartGuard over a decade ago now, we sat down with some NextGen clients and determined what their outages were caused by and what their needs were for the data. One of the things we kept running into with the outages was they were often caused by network issues. So it was something, the router at the location, the network line being strung among the phone poles outside, things like that. That was the most common cause of outage that they were seeing. Now, some of those other items Tom mentioned came into play too, the data center, physical, mechanical, air conditioning type stuff. But the big one we kept coming back to was the internet. And we saw that recently. We had a Amazon AWS outage a couple weeks ago, and then we had all those outages that Tom had on his slide there. So we still see those happening. And the reason they're happening, again, a big part of that is just human error. And the problem with the human error aspect of it is that it takes down the redundancy too. Everyone looks at Amazon and goes, well, don't you have another backup for that or a way of doing that? And the challenge is there's configuration above all that to make the redundancy work. So when we sat down with these clients, we decided that one of the key criteria is we can't have the data in the cloud, because if you can't get to the network, you can't get to your data. And that was very important. And one of the things that's very unique about ChartGuard is it's designed that way from the ground up to have the data within each of your locations when you need it. So if we look at this diagram here on the screen, we see in the middle your EHR, and that EHR may be hosted, it may be in your own remote data center, it may be in one of your practice locations. But we have that kind of basket that has all your eggs in it, okay? It has all your clinical data. And we sat down and decided, well, what do you really need during downtime? Well, we need the data for the patients on the schedule and maybe the next several days if the outage goes overnight. We need it to be easily available at each of the locations, and we need it to work when technology is failing us. When these complex sets of systems, Tom had that slide up earlier, and every day is kind of an aligning of the planets type of event where all the different things that need to work together work to get you to your EHR. Well, occasionally one of those things just fails. It topples over and doesn't work, so there's issues. So in the middle with your EHR server is where the ChartGuard engine runs, and that ChartGuard engine is the piece containing the complexity that will look at your appointment schedule. It'll determine what patients are coming in and which locations they're coming into, and then it'll pull the data for each location and for each patient. And each patient will get a PDF file containing their clinical information. It'll be like the old paper chart. In fact, if you want, you can print it out, put it in a manila folder, and put it on the front desk. So when they come to get the patient, they can bring them back and grab the folder, just like we did a few years ago. So the key here is each of these PDF files with the patient chart in them gets pushed to each location. So you have it at that location, and you have several days worth of these at each location. And that way, if the network goes down, if it's early in the day or late in the day, you have that vast majority of your patient's clinical information at a computer inside that location. Now, in the location, if the network's still up in the four walls and just not able to get out, you can of course access that PDF electronically over your internal network within those four walls. If the network within the location is down, then for the PC, the computer that's going to have these charts hosted on them, we'd recommend adding a directly connected printer and then just pushing them to paper as the patients come in. You'll know when the patients are going to come in because in addition to these PDF files with the clinical history of the patient, you're going to get an appointment listing for each location also. So you don't need to print the whole day's worth of charts at the beginning of the day. You can kind of print them in intervals, hour by hour, 30-minute block by 30-minute block, however you want to do it. And that way, if the system does come back up during the day, you don't have all this extra PHI that you've put out to paper. The reason we use the PDF files is because PDF files are universally readable. Every computing device out there has a PDF reader available for it. So whether that's your doctor's tablets or notebooks or the PCs in the exam lanes, if you wanted to use those electronically within those four walls, you certainly could do that. Additionally, if you decided that you wanted to put them to paper, PDFs also print great to paper. Again, what you see on the PDF is what you're going to get when you print these to paper. So that's the big takeaway from ChartGuard, is that if you can't get to the network, you can't get to your data. So let's go ahead and render the data into PDF files and put it at a computer at each location so you have it there before the network goes down. And that's really been a big differentiator for ChartGuard in the market. Now, for what's in the PDF files, Tom, if you want to go to the next slide, you'll get that daily appointment listing. You're going to get a patient data sheet in each of the patient PDF files. You're going to get your module data as you see listed there. We're going to pull EHR and ICS/document manager documents and images in there too. Now, you may be scratching your head and saying, wow, that sounds like a lot to put in the PDF file. But the reality is you won't need all that information in it. You can go ahead and just tell us the scope of the information. Do you just need the last several visits or the last several of these documents instead of the whole long patient history? It's what do you need in a downtime situation to get you through it, right? It's not about needing everything. And ChartGuard will help you configure that, and then it'll do its work each night, creating these PDF files, pushing it to the PC at each location, and cleaning up any old charts that are out there. It's really kind of amazing how it works. And during your technology challenged periods of time, ChartGuard is easy to use because it's just a PDF file. I'm going to go ahead and turn it back to Tom, and he'll show you what one of these looks like and what's it, how to navigate around it.
Okay, thank you, Joe. So we're going to take a look at what the PDF files look like, as Joe said. And so this is what the patient chart looks like in PDF format. You'll see here that the top part is demographic information with the patient's name, insurances, information. As you scroll down, then we get into the actual modules, if you will, or data sections. The first section would be the allergies, and you see that it's in a nice table format. And you can scroll down to the next section and take a look at the active medications. And you can scroll down further and take a look at the lab information, again, in nice table format. Now, we also, these PDF files, we bookmarked the PDF files as well. So if you come over here to the bookmark, and then you can see all the various sections of the PDF file, and then you can click on a particular section that you want to go to and see. So in this case, you can see the immunizations. If you want to go back to the labs, you can click on the labs bookmark and take a look at the labs. So you have the ability to scroll from top to bottom or use the bookmarks to go specific sections based on the individual that's looking on the PDF file, so they can get to the section that they're most interested in. As Joe mentioned, we do bring in documents and ICS images, and that's what these look like as well in the PDF file. And then this is what the images look like as well. So again, you can scroll from top to bottom to see the information, or you can click on the bookmarks to go to the particular section of the PDF file. The second document, as Joe mentioned, that you'll see in that we generate with ChartGuard is the appointment listing. And the appointment listing is there for each of the office locations, and it has the name of the patient that's coming in, what time they're coming in, what they're coming in for, and who they're coming in to see. So the front desk has that information as well, so they can continue to have the patients come through, and the patient flow continues on as the IT team is working to bring NextGen back online. So that's a look at the patient chart and what it looks like in PDF format. This is the appointment listing and what it looks like in PDF format as well. Oops.
Okay, thank you for that, Tom. That was fantastic. I hope that everybody got the information that they needed. We're going to go on to questions. So it looks like we only have a handful, so if you have questions, please feel free to ask them. That's what we're here for. We're happy to help. So the first question, are charts only available for future appointments, What if a provider needs a chart on an unscheduled patient? Joe, you want to take that one?
Sure can. Normally, the charts are generated based on the appointment schedule. However, if there's other criteria that can be used to generate the charts, we can look at that with you. It can be customized. For example, in OBGYN practices, we can opt to generate charts every night in addition to the schedule for ladies who are pregnant or in a certain stage of pregnancy. So those ones will always be available. Additionally, for clinics who do a lot of walk-in appointments, we can work with you up front to generate the full set of patient charts, and then each night it'll just add an update to the ones who had new encounters that day. So there's a couple different ways to handle it. The vast majority of clients use the appointment schedule, but we do have a subset of clients that are doing these other methods.
Great, thank you, Joe. Okay, next question here. Does ChartGuard work with large groups who have over 100 providers?
Yes, it does. ChartGuard has been optimized to run quickly each night. Multiple ChartGuard engines, those are the processes that create the charts, can be set up and load balanced so that it can do thousands of charts each night. So we'll work with you as part of the sales process and part of the installation to determine how best to meet your needs in terms of volume.
Great, thank you. Can we use ChartGuard for giving a provider their patient data when they leave the group? I'm sorry, they said if they leave the group. If they leave the group.
Yeah, the if is better, right?
If is better.
We have a product called ChartGuard On Demand, and it uses the ChartGuard engine, but it gives you a interface where you can go ahead and pick populations of patients whose charts you want to pull. And that may be for a specific provider, who in this case might be leaving the practice, or it could be for an insurance audit. Maybe you just want to pull people who've had a particular financial class as their primary insurance. So that's ChartGuard On Demand. The output will look very similar to what we saw here today with ChartGuard. If you're interested in that, please reach out to us and we can set up a demonstration.
That's a good lead into our last question, or last question we've received so far. If you have any more, please feel free to type them. We obviously still have a few more minutes to get to them, so don't hesitate. But continuing on, can we use this to give patients a readable copy of their medical record?
Absolutely. Again, ChartGuard On Demand will do that. That's probably the easiest way. However, even if you have this version of ChartGuard for the continuity, we have some clients that set up a dummy resource in their schedule and just put those patients out there. Then they'd have those charts the next day for them.
Oh, clever. I like that workaround. Okay, well, it looks like that's all the questions we've had today. So if you have any more, please feel free to let me know. You can reply back to the email that I'll be sending with a link to the slides and recording within the next few days. Or you can reply back to the email of the webinar. Basically, any email that you have, most of them go to me, so feel free to reach out to me. Or if you already have a contact within Itenov or DAS Health, feel free to reach out to them and they can direct it accordingly as well. We're here to help. We're happy to answer any questions you have, or if you want to set up a one-on-one demo to go through this and really discuss more of what your specific practice might need, feel free to reach out to us. That's why we're here. And I think that's all we have for the day. Joe, anything else?
That's it. Thank you, everyone. We appreciate your time today.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.